All right, we are going to get started. My name is Carrie Rheingans, and this is the Ann Arbor Democratic Party's 2022 primary election forum for Ward 1, for Ward 1 City Council candidates here in the city of Ann Arbor. I am Carrie Rheingans, and I am the co-vice chair of programming for the Ann Arbor Dems, and I'm a resident and a voter in Ann Arbor's 5th Ward. So tonight's event is not a traditional debate. It is a format that will consist of 2 opening messages, one from each candidate, a series of pre-released questions with a 2-minute response time, and we all have timers to time ourselves. And then each candidate will get a closing statement. There will be no rebuttals to responses, and we ask that each candidate focus on answering the questions in ways that are factual, that highlight your own aspirations for the office, and use professional decorum and language that is appropriate for all audiences. Candidates should mind their own time and be aware that I do have the ability to mute, but I'd love to not use it. So I would like to welcome our candidates, Cynthia Harrison and Angeline Smith. Thank you both for being here today. And before we started the broadcast, we did randomly draw names. And so we will start with a 2-minute opening statement from Miss Cynthia Harrison.
All right. Good evening. And thank you to the Ann Arbor Dems for hosting myself and my opponent this evening. And thank you, Madam Moderator. Well, I want to introduce myself. My name is Cynthia Harrison, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a progressive Democrat running for Ann Arbor City Council in Ward 1. I was born and raised here in Ann Arbor, and my parents relocated here in the 60s. They chose Ann Arbor as a place of welcome, warmth, and an opportunity to raise their family. As they advanced in their careers, they did move around. We did move around as I was growing up, but I've lived the majority of my life here in Ward 1. I know this city like the back of my hand, and I love it. You know, my family, I raised my family here. The town is beautiful and it's welcoming. However, as a Black woman who grew up in this city, who's watched friends and family be forced to move because the city became increasingly affordable, I recognize and acknowledge what can happen when there are lack of priorities and policies that support equality. A little bit about myself. I am a program manager at the CIL, the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living, and we support individuals that live with a disability. I am a strong mental health care advocate. I've been working on the ground and volunteering and have been involved with Washtenaw County NAMI for many, many years. Is that your timer?
It's not my timer. You got 14 seconds.
I thought I heard it. And so, and as a result of lived experience, I got involved with NAMI, and I also am a criminal legal reform advocate. I currently serve on several commissions and boards, and really what I want to do is help for those most vulnerable citizens have a better opportunity in this city that I love so much.
Thank you. 2 minutes goes by fast. Thank you so much. Miss Angeline Smith, please, 2 minutes to do your opening statement.
Hi, thank you for being here, Cynthia, and thank you, Carrie and the Ann Arbor Dems for hosting this forum. I really appreciate it. I am Angeline Smith, and I am a small business owner here in the city of Ann Arbor. I run a small accounting and consulting firm, Angeline and Associates, where we serve nonprofits and small businesses and help them manage their financial operations. I relocated to Ann Arbor in 2007, primarily or predominantly because Ann Arbor is a college town, and prior to starting my firm in 2004, I had an opportunity to travel throughout the country working at KPMG Consulting through the higher education practice, and we helped universities and some hospitals that received research grants with managing their grants in order to be able to keep their grant funding because the reports were being filed late and inaccurate. And so after I left that to serve nonprofits, take what I learned at the institutional level and serve nonprofits who are human services agencies to serve the communities that I grew up in, I decided that I could build my client base greater coming to Ann Arbor because of the number of nonprofits here. So since I've been here since 2007, I've had an opportunity to really get to know the city, and I decided, based on my experience with housing insecurity, that I needed to have a seat at the table as we all deal with the housing crisis right now, and speak for those who need places to live and to have a strong quality of life. I sit on the board of the Ann Arbor, or sit on the finance committee of the United Way of Washtenaw, and the audit committee of the Ann Arbor Community Foundation. And I'm looking forward to telling you more about myself.
Well, thank you. Very good job, both of you. That's really hard to fit it in 2 minutes. So let's reverse the order. So this time, the first response will be going to you, Ms. Smith. What is the most important issue in your ward, and how will you approach it using an equity lens? And you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think the most important issue at a very high level is quality of life. And so if I had to choose one issue, I would say quality of life. But what impacts quality of life is a myriad of issues. And again, one of them is housing affordability. So if we in the city of Ann Arbor are to look for equitable ways for people to have a good quality of life, we have to make sure that people can afford to live here. And by housing affordability, I am not just referring to those people who are unhoused and who need subsidies. I'm referring to working class people who are increasingly finding it difficult to afford to live here. And because this is a national issue right now, quite frankly, it seems to be more important than ever. We have developers outside of the city that see the city of Ann Arbor as an opportunity to make quite a bit of money. And as they do that, I think it's important for our council, our government here to make sure that as those people take advantage as they can, because we're in a capitalistic society, of the opportunities to come in and develop here in the city, that we need people that will represent those who are already here, so that what's being developed is not pricing us out of the market. And that lends to a very it's detrimental to having a good quality of life, and so is the environment. And so when we talk about 820 and our quality of life with regard to the environment, that is also an issue that I think is extremely important for not only Ward 1, but Ann Arbor at large, but particularly Ward 1, given the history in the ward in terms of the communities that have been displaced from the ward.
Thank you. Ms. Harrison, would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
What is the most important issue in your ward, and how will you approach it using an equity lens? You have 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Madam Moderator, for the question. Ward 1. So if you ask the most important issues in Ward 1, you know, I would say that we need better non-motorized transit and public transit to support the many units of housing that are being developed, especially on the north side. You know, the development that's going up, it's wonderful to see additional housing. We need more affordable housing. We need more workforce housing, and we need more market rate housing in general. However, this does create kind of, you know, issues with traffic and transportation along Pontiac Trail. I believe that infrastructure is a principal way to achieve equity. I do believe that in addition to non-motorized transportation, when you're looking at the lower town area, the traffic study showed that we need more traffic control on Pontiac Trail. So again, I think we need to think about transit equity in relation to housing. I do believe that it is important that we are building housing on the transit corridor. It would be great if individuals were able to get around town without having a car. And we do know that we're not asking anyone to give up their cars, but they are a luxury, and not everybody can afford to have one. So when I think about the most important issue in Ward 1, I really do think about, how are we going to manage traffic and transportation as we continue to see development go up, in particular along Pontiac Trail. So this is,
and that's 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Sorry for cutting you off. All right, so in reverse order, Ms. Harrison, you'll take the next one first. So the next question is about many people perceive that there are factions on City Council. How will you use conflict resolution to collaborate with your colleagues who may have different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives than you do? So Ms. Harrison, you have 2 minutes and you get to go first.
I thank you, Madam Moderator, for asking the question. And I'm glad you asked this because really, this is largely why I decided to run for City Council. I thought that council could use my perspective as a Black woman and a lifelong resident. I really thought that I would be a value add to City Council. And as a Black woman who was born and raised here in Ann Arbor, I learned at a very, very early age how to get along and develop solid relationships with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, those with different experience than myself. I was the only Black student in my class until the 3rd grade. Now, as I'm older as an adult, as a community advocate where I work alongside stakeholders from all walks of life with different backgrounds and experiences, I will lead by example and model what civility looks like. Just like I do on the many commissions that I serve on and the boards that I serve on, we need to be able to be civil to each other regardless of what position we take. And as far as conflict resolution, we need to collaborate, execute, and hold each other accountable. We will be effective by supporting each other and by celebrating our wins and learning from our setbacks. So thank you so much for asking this question. I think it's really important. And I look forward, if I do win the election, to serving with my fellow council members on the Ann Arbor City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Smith, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thanks.
Okay, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, hit my timer here. For me, this question I found pretty interesting because part of what I do as a consultant, and particularly consulting with nonprofit organizations, is I facilitate strategic planning processes. And a board of an organization or a corporation, they're not unlike the body of the City Council, where they're all on the same team. Particularly in the case of the Ann Arbor City Council, where we tend to have the same ideologies politically. And so for me, what I've attempted to do in the work of facilitating teams that are all trying to reach the same objectives is to make sure that the team focuses on the objectives rather than the personalities. And I've been able to do that as a facilitator, but I've also been able to do that as a member of teams, particularly because I really do think governing is about the outcomes and not about the person. And anytime we're being louder than the issue that we're trying to get across, or we're highlighting ourselves and our personality, we lose effectiveness with regard to what we, in the case of the city council, would have been elected to do. So it's very important to lead by example, is to keep our eye on what we were elected for, to understand what it is that the people expect of us. And that's something that I would always keep at the top of my mind. I've been in countless negotiations with regard to business, and it's just a matter of, when you have disagreements with people, to be sure that you come to a win-win consensus for the greater good. And in this case, from a city council perspective, it you would assume that we all have the same objectives. We may differ on the way that we get to those objectives. And so if we keep each other aware of that, then I think we'd be good.
All right. Well, thank you. And sorry for cutting you off a little there.
No, sorry.
All right. The next question, we'll start with you, Ms. Smith. During the upcoming term, City Council will be tasked with updating the city's comprehensive land use plan. How will you ensure that the plan is equitable? And additionally, what are your thoughts about the recent pattern of growth and change in Ann Arbor? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to take the latter part first. I think we are in a season of change here in Ann Arbor. And I would love to be part of that change. We are looking at ways to be sure that mental illness is not criminalized, and substance abuse is not criminalized. And so what we're talking about here with regard to land use, I think is extremely important when we're looking at the comprehensive plan, to make sure that we're not addressing one issue that's critical, like housing affordability and sustainability, and somehow we're making their competing priorities, and we don't understand that addressing one would cause a problem for the other. So for example, when we're talking about building along the transit corridor, we're talking about making the city more walkable and using public transportation, and that would be great for a number of things, particularly the environment, because we don't have to use our vehicles as much. But in doing that, I think it's very important to take the opportunity to look at what's being built along the corridor, to make sure that that's affordable, to make sure it's being built sustainable. Because in other words, if we're trying to become more sustainable as a city, getting to net neutrality, how are we allowing buildings to be built that are not sustainable buildings? And these buildings will be here well beyond 2030, which is our goal for 820. So it's a matter of balancing our priorities and making sure, as we address one, we're not somehow hampering our ability to achieve the other. And I think I can apply that to the land use, as I said, with regard to development and building along the transit corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good timing. All right, Ms. Harrison, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure, thank you.
During the upcoming term, City Council will be tasked with updating the city's comprehensive land use plan. How will you ensure that the plan is equitable? Additionally, what are your thoughts about the recent pattern of growth and change in Ann Arbor? And you have 2 minutes.
I thank you for the question, Madam Moderator. When I think about basically updating the city's comprehensive land use plan, really what I think about is how our land takes place in a historical context. And when I think about that, I think about seeking to undo the legacies of redlining and exclusionary zoning, and building a community for all while still preserving Ann Arbor's unique local character that I really love so much. And I love it so much, I haven't been able to leave this place. But really what I want is for other people to be able to enjoy Ann Arbor as well. I mentioned in my opening statement that growing up here, over the years, I have seen the Black population, for example, drop. And I see that really, I mean, it's dropped down to 6 to 7%. We're in single digits. And for me, I take that personal. I've seen my friends and peers and family be driven out of the city that I love so much. And it hurts. And that also is largely the reason that I am running for city council. When I think about the land use plan, I think about building on transit corridors, getting rid of parking minimums. I think about the 80,000 individuals plus 80,000 that drive in and out of our city every day, what that's doing to the roads, but more importantly, what is that doing to their families when they have to leave their children in the care of someone else for longer because they are driving into Ann Arbor and they can't afford to live here. I want for everybody to be able to enjoy the city that I love so much. And that means transit corridor zoning. That means, like I said, public transit. Am I out of time?
You are out of time.
Okay.
Sorry for cutting you off. 2 minutes is hard. I know you're both doing a really great job with the 2-minute thing. Thank you. So we'll do the reverse order for this question. So Ms. Harrison, that means you get to answer first. The next question is, how will you ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion in community engagement around topics of the land use plan review, constituent services, and other matters impacting the lives of residents? And you have 2 minutes.
This time, I promise to use my timer. I'm going to start it right now. Thank you, Madam Moderator. We need to be a lot more active when it comes to public engagement. People want to have a voice in determining what city government does and helping to decide what their quality of life and the lives of their children and their neighborhoods look like. We have to figure out more creative ways and better ways to engage the community. Everyone's not on the internet, so we need to figure out ways that we can meet people where they are. We need to make sure that we're engaging folks, to make sure we're asking them what they think, how they feel, what they're willing to support. We need to factor this into the decisions that we make. We need to build trust with the public, and we need to be transparent. In addition, I think we've learned a lot from COVID about different ways of reaching out to residents through surveys, Zoom meetings that open up participation to people that may not have the time to attend in person. They may not even have the transportation to be able to attend in person. So how can we, when we're looking at community engagement, we really need to have an equity lens on how we reach people. I will do my best to ensure that the city offers diverse ways of gathering feedback. And I'll use social media, for example, and my campaign network to publicize these opportunities to, again, meet people where they are, get people involved, get them engaged, and let them help to make the decisions that are really going to govern their lives, the lives of their children and their future overall. So thank you for the question.
Oh, thank you. All right, Ms. Smith, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please.
How will you ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion in community engagement around topics of the land use plan review, constituent services, and other matters impacting the lives of residents? And you have 2 minutes.
I think this question is very personal to me, because one of the things that I realized, I grew up in the city of Detroit. I grew up in a very, what I would consider disadvantaged area. And so for me to have graduated from high school, to have gone on to have gotten a degree, bachelor's degree in accounting and a master's degree in public administration, to have been recruited by one of the top accounting firms in the country as a consultant, and go around and earn the experience I did in helping institutions with gaining more financial management skills, it occurred to me after having gone that far that the impact that I was making was not in the right direction. And so that's what compelled me to stop and say, I can use these skills and I can help community-based nonprofit organizations that are doing what needs to be done for communities that I grew up in, and help them manage their financial operations more effectively so that they can show that they have the capacity to continue to get the funds to do it, because I could see the impact of my work in that. So that's one of the reasons that I decided that I wanted to run for city council, is because I would offer a perspective of not only having the financial management background to put whatever we're doing at the council table through the financial feasibility lens, and through a lens of whether or not it can even be done versus how good it sounds. And that also means having a duality of someone who represents a marginalized community that has that voice at the table that can say, hey, while we're looking at improving the lives and setting policies, that we're not creating any unintended consequences for those people. And I believe that is one way to accomplish that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, only a couple questions left. This one will go to you first, Ms. Smith. Ann Arbor will be launching a pilot program for unarmed crisis response. What are your priorities and ideas for implementing a program like this in the city? And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think the number one priority for the program that will be funded as a pilot program is that when you hear people say we're already doing that, we already can dispatch, where it's something where what the result is not from a criminalizing perspective, is we're relying on those dispatchers at the 911 center to make that decision as to whether or not they're sending law enforcement into a crisis situation. And so with a separate dispatch where the community and the people get to decide who comes to help them, so that if there is a substance abuse issue and there's a drug overdose, for example, we don't have that become criminalized, rather than having the person be addressed as someone with a disease that can be helped. And so for me, it starts from the point of contact with regard to how we address that. And so for me, that is the priority and the ideas for implementing that. And also, and I believe this has taken place based on what Crows has done, is they have looked at how this program has been successful in other cities. And so they're not reinventing the wheel. They have looked at tried and true efforts to be successful in this way. And they have been able to point out that there haven't been unintended instances of someone needing law enforcement and they're not having that in the midst of that crisis. And so that's one of the other priorities that I want to see, is that they are looking at the successes of other programs. And I really believe that those are the two priorities: the dispatch and not reinvent the wheel.
Thank you very much. Good timing there. Ms. Harrison, would you like me to repeat the question? Looks like you said sure.
Yes.
Ann Arbor will be launching a pilot program for unarmed crisis response. What are your priorities and ideas for implementing a program like this in the city? You have 2 minutes.
All right. This one is near and dear to my heart. As a mental health advocate, mother, and someone with relevant lived experience, I know firsthand that public safety cannot be a one-size-fits-all solution. I've spent years working alongside community activists, city, county, and state government officials to demand better for our communities. I've done some work on legislation. My work in support of Stephanie Chang's Senate Bill 637 resulted in the expansion of unarmed mental health crisis response teams statewide, and that was signed into law in December by Governor Whitmer. But there is still so much more that we can do and that we must do. Each of us wants reliable public safety systems that keep us supported and safe. We want those systems to earn the trust we are placing in them. It's time to decriminalize mental illness. It's time to decriminalize substance abuse disease, which is a disease that nobody asked for. It's time to introduce a new approach, an unarmed approach, one that is thoughtfully and collaboratively, tongue-tied because I'm so passionate about this, implemented to ensure its effectiveness. But one that does not undermine the system or neglect the needs of those who trust, whose trust has been irreparably broken by our current system. And the residents do agree. A key priority of mine when it comes to unarmed response is that I want people most impacted by the harms of policing to be directly involved in the planning and to be consultants of unarmed crisis response in this city, Ann Arbor. Folks from marginalized communities, those with previous encounters with the criminal legal system, those who suffer from substance use disease, or sex workers, marginalized communities, immigrants, Black and brown folks. When elected to city council, I'm eager to build on my work with law enforcement and community leaders by collaborating with CROWS to develop a careful approach to implementing this new public safety system. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. All right, this is the last question, and then we'll get to closing statements. Thank you both. You're doing really great with the 2-minute time. It's really hard. Thank you so much. So Ms. Harrison, you'll start with this question. Many of our club members want the candidates to address climate change and how Ann Arbor can achieve our A20 goals. How would you prioritize the 6 pillars or the 6 strategies in our A20 plan, and why? Why would you prioritize them that way? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, for the question. Climate change. Climate change disproportionately harms marginalized folks, poor people, people of color, and Ann Arbor needs to continue to be a leader on environmental matters. Things that minimize climate change can also help people's day-to-day lives. Regarding the strategies, or pillars, as you call them, for example, number 3, the 3rd strategy is to improve energy efficiency in pretty much all buildings. This will disproportionately help renters, as utilities are typically likely the larger portion of their bills and what they're paying from their income that they're earning. So when you have these bills that are astronomical, we need to really look at ways of addressing that. The pillar has overt goals. Some of the goals: improving affordable housing units, aging in place, green rentals. A couple of other priorities that I think about from the A20 strategies are the quality of air, improving those when we move to electric appliances from gas, improving energy efficiency, like I mentioned earlier, and weatherization, which again decreases utility bills. So that's basically what's top of mind for me when I think about our A20 goals.
Great, thank you. Ms. Smith, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. You have 2 minutes.
So 2 things come to mind with this question. The first is something that I really believe in when we set out to achieve a goal, and that is establishing metrics that help us measure the success of that goal as we're trying to implement it. And so if we're, for example, looking at becoming carbon neutral by 2030 in the A20 plan, and we're 2 years in, what metrics would we look at to say, are we on track? Are we ahead of the game? Are we behind? How do we know we need to course correct? How do we know that our strategy for reaching that goal is effective? Do we wait until 2030 and say, did we do it? Or do we have an opportunity if we set those objectives and those metrics up front so that we can constantly be looking at them? The second that comes to mind is what my opponent mentioned about the buildings, the green buildings, and it gets back to what I talked about earlier, where we have missed opportunities. We have developers coming in, we have negotiating power with those developers. Anything short of requiring them, if it's not legal by the state, we should take every opportunity to do that when they're at the table trying to get the permits to do the work, because we're saying in A20 that's what we want to do. So why would we not even make the attempt when we engage with those developers to make sure that when we're negotiating and they come into our city and they want to make money, which is perfectly fine, that we also get what we need in return, other than a big beautiful luxury building that would not be addressing the city's needs in an equitable fashion. And so that's what I would want to focus on.
Great, thank you. Perfect timing. All right, we have reached closing statement time. So you each will have 2 minutes. Since Ms. Harrison had the first opening statement, we'll have Ms. Smith have the first closing statement. So you get to go first and you have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you again, and thank you, Cynthia, for being here and talking with us, because I like the conversation here in the format. And I just want to say again that I really believe that I believe in democracy. And I also understand that in order for democracy to work, that the people that represent the population have to be representative of that population, which means that there needs to be more diversity at the city council table. And when I say diversity, I mean in race, I mean in lived experiences, I mean in all kinds of ways that the decisions will be made that would impact people. And that's where you get the best outcome when you're a group of diverse people, because you're not just telling the person what they want to hear and everybody's nodding in agreement all the time that, yeah, let's do this, this is what they want. And we're not engaging the people. And so I really think very passionately about this. The other thing that I think is that I would bring 30 years of financial management experience to the council table. I don't question anybody else's heart in terms of what they want for the city, elected officials, but I really think that what's missing right now in this council is the perspective of, is it financially feasible? The perspective of, can we do this? Can our staff implement what we're saying needs to be done? And so as a financial management consultant, as someone that's worked with strategic planning and actually goal setting and looking at metrics, I think I would bring a strength to the table that's not there at this point. And I hope to be able to do that.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Smith, for your closing statement. Ms. Harrison, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement. And I'll start the timer when you're done taking a drink.
Thank you. This time I'm going to set my timer too. All right. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Ann Arbor Dems, everyone who's watching. And thank you, Angeline, for this conversation. It's been really great. I'm really glad to see 2 strong Black women here. I really would like to hope that we set examples for more Black women and minorities in general getting into politics, running for office, I guess I should say. I'm really also appreciative of our Ann Arbor staff. I've met many of them living here, growing up. I'm appreciative of our finance department and our accountants and what they do for the city. What I want to say about myself is that I am so passionate about being on city council. My decision to run was very intentional and very deliberate. I thought about it for a while. I had conversations with my family. When George Floyd was murdered, at that time I was watching things on TV, watching meetings, joining Facebook events, but I decided at that time to get on the ground, and I did. And I belong and joined several commissions, one of which is the 21st Century Police and Compliance Commission at the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office, and that's an Obama era initiative that Sheriff Clayton brought to his Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. That's one of many things that I'm doing. I am the only one, I'm going to say, in my race that has my experience as a mother who had a child with learning differences. I had to learn how to navigate Ann Arbor public school systems. After that, police, just, and court systems, unfortunately. So I know how to get it done. I have a coalition of support behind me, institutional support, Ellie Savitt, Sheriff Clayton, Senator Irwin. These individuals support me because they've seen the work that I do. And I ask for your vote on August 2nd. Or before, if you turn in an absentee ballot. So thank you.
Thank you both so much. And thank you for stepping up to run. It is not easy and you're under the spotlight, and you both did a great job today. So thank you. And thank you for inspiring other Black women and other people of color to run for office. So thank you very much for that. This was the candidate forum for Ann Arbor City Council Ward 1. I would like to invite all the Democrats in the Ann Arbor area, not just the city, but the whole area, right? We count ourselves as larger than just the city boundaries, but we invite you to join us on Facebook, visit our website at annarbordems.org, and you can find more information about our future events and ways to get involved. And everybody have a wonderful evening. Bye.